So welcome everyone. Welcome to Weaving the Threads of Sophia, where we remember the sacred, divine feminine in conversations with wonderful women who are also walking the path of the sacred feminine. Some of them are authors, mystics, and I'm here joined today by the beautiful Annalisa Derr. And I have a little introduction for everyone. So, Dr. Annalisa Derr is a goddess scholar and feminine embodiment facilitator teaching women how to reclaim their sacred feminine power through a conscious relationship with their menstrual cycle. Welcome, Anna.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here today.
It's such a pleasure. I love having these conversations. And now I'm just getting, it's not just a conversation, but it's like this, it's a journey in itself. It's like this inner stewardship. We have these feminine waters and we want to explore deep on our history, on our lineages. And yeah, that there's more out there and we want to weave that together. Hence the title of the show.
Yes, I know. I love the title of the show. I love the weaving the threads of Sophia, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I well, obviously because of the weaving metaphor, which is like,
Mhm.
women's work since like time
Yeah.
immemorial.
Or more.
And weaving the threads of our lives and our ancestors and that kind of weaving wisdom and the weaving like within the womb, but also Sophia as this embodiment of like divine feminine
Yeah.
wisdom. I love
Yeah.
that. I resonate with that too.
Thank you. So to bring in, I actually also have a beautiful oil from Morocco, and of course it's a rose oil. So I'll just invite everyone to settle into the space. We're going to have a beautiful conversation on the sacred feminine and Mary Magdalene. And also to you, Anna, I'm just sending you this beautiful oil, this rose oil, as we set the space. And I'm sending you healing and feminine energy to all of those of you who are watching. And you can put a hand on your womb and a hand on your heart. And just take a deep breath in with us there. And just feeling all the feels. How are we doing today? Saying hello to our body and our breasts and our womb, the sacred vessel that walks this beautiful Mother Earth. And we're here today to honor all women who walked before us. And in my red tent work, I call this, we have Sophia, and I call her Ava. So we always honor Ava as well.
Beautiful.
So Anna, what brings you to this work? What is your weaving or your story of remembrance? I'm so curious to hear.
Yeah, I personally love my story. Because it's meaningful for me. I had spent the first 30 years of my life as an actress. I was living in New York City. I'd always been interested in more traditional forms of theater. So I went with a New York City theater company to South India, and we trained in classical Indian dance theater. And I was discovering that it's very spiritual,
Yeah.
and some of these lineages like Kathakali, which is a male dance form from South India, they say goes back a couple thousands of years. I mean, like an unbroken lineage of this theater tradition, this dance theater tradition, which is incredible when you think about it. It's like living history, right? And so when I was there, and we danced Mohiniyattam too, which is a female dance form, and I really got to experience for the first time how to embody the energy of the divine feminine and the goddess. And I didn't even really know. I mean, like I'd kind of like encountered goddesses at that point, but not really. Like it wasn't really a part of my worldview. And so I remember like having this experience of this just the spiritual side of theater and art, which felt really natural for me. And then this opening to embodying of the divine feminine energy. And then I was sitting at the end of this training on a beach in India, and I had picked up a book on Mother Mary at that point.
Mm.
And I started reading about it, and I was just so touched by how strong the tradition of the divine feminine is in Hindu culture. And it's really just palpable. It's everywhere, right? It's like they recognize the earth, their relationships with one another, the colors of the saris, the smells of the jasmine. I mean, in South India, married women mostly wear jasmine in their hair. It's like so fragrant and so feminine, and all of these traditions, which were very foreign to me at that time, but I've since then started to learn about them. And I was just like, oh my God, like this is a culture that sees the divine feminine everywhere. And I grew up in a culture that sees her nowhere. Like, I grew up very in a Lutheran, yeah, non-denominational. Like when I talk to people who grew up Catholic or maybe Orthodox Christian, there's some kind of remembrance of a sacred feminine through their saints and stuff. But it was like, you have to understand. And like the version I grew up with, I barely even knew who Mary Magdalene was, maybe the name, you know. So I was like, I got angry and I was like, oh my God, like, where is this missing divine feminine? She has to be somewhere. And so I started my quest to search for the missing divine feminine in the Western tradition. And soon after that, I went back to New York City, and I was like really sincerely in my heart, just longing to, who is she? Where is she? How can I find her? What is this path? And I felt the presence of Mary Magdalene like
Mm.
rise up inside of me and kind of surround me, and it just, she was just kind of like, I'm here. And it just, there was this knowing inside of me that she was going to be my guide and my guru on this. I'm getting very emotional because
You do.
this was,
Try not to cry.
yeah,
We're
I
here
know.
in feminine space, so welcome all the tears. But I'm moved by that. I'm so moved. So see
Thank
how
you.
she moves people.
She, exactly. I don't tell this story that often. So, but when I'm in a space that's here to, honor, especially Mary Magdalene, it feels very kind of poignant. And so she was just there, and I knew she was going to be my guide and guru on this journey. And she, you know, it wasn't, it felt like the initial kind of like stepping through that threshold. And from there, I took myself on a Mary Magdalene pilgrimage in the south of France. I did all the research myself, and I did it by myself. And and then the point after that, I promise I won't go on forever, but the point after that was like the next big, like through that journey, I really learned that what I was looking for was um, what it means to be a woman. Like I was like,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
so shut down around what is femininity, what is womanhood. And it was like I discovered that my longing to find her through this pilgrimage was actually a longing to understand the feminine. Um, and that I thought I was looking for her. I thought I was looking for the real Mary Magdalene, but I was really looking for myself, because she really is, and we can go into that more later if you want, but like she really is that archetype for um this missing feminine that many of us are trying to discover, right? And so that was kind of like the next step, like, okay, this is like it, where I had to decide, am I totally changing my life trajectory and just dedicating my life to finding her? And I mean the big her, the
Yeah.
H, like the big she.
The big she, almost like the Sophia, right? The feminine consciousness, the Shakti. She's had so many names throughout history, herstory, throughout time and eons. And also, I like to call her in my work the feminine principle, which sounds maybe a
Yes,
little bit like logical, but it is the feminine principle of the feminine in itself. She by many names, which is Sekhmet, right? The Egyptian goddess.
yes, yes. Yeah, I like that too. I have used that in the past too, because it feels just like an honoring next to the masculine, which we're so familiar with, the sacred
Yeah.
masculine. We're so familiar in the Christian kind of ethos. But it's like when you say feminine principle, it's like, boom, she is there right side by side.
And we've really forgotten how to look through that lens. And even I remember growing up, and there was like no feeling of feminine energy. I could never have imagined to do what I do now. So disconnected I was from my feminine body as a girl or as a teenager, but also society, everything. So I grew up in Germany, and everything is very interesting. Like you're looking out there, everybody's forced kind of to be that one animus. Everybody has to be that one perfect society you fit in. You do this, you go to work, you do that, which is fine in itself. But if you look deeper, like we have the masculine structure, but where is she? So I actually have this. So where is she? Where's the second principle? Like where's the second principle? We have the masculine, feminine. Where is she? So it's not just this one, we have two.
That's right.
And that's so
That's right.
important.
Yeah. And the two make the one.
Mhm. Yeah. Oh, I just feel so yummy already. My
I
body
know, I me too. I'm like, oh, I feel her.
so nourished. Oh, yeah, that's such a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing. Because
Thanks.
I know it's personal, and this is exactly what this work allows us to do. And what my invitation is to women: can you dare yourself? Can you have courage to go inside? And can you discover who you really are? It's just like how you said you were looking outside for Mary Magdalene, and I do the same. Like I read, I write poetry, and I okay, where is she? Okay, what was this text? And I have proof, and now I have to tell everyone. But what does that even mean in the mystical sense? You know, when she writes.
Yeah. And exactly. And I do think it's important. Like the outer journey is really important too. But
Mm,
I think at the end of the day, what it's doing too is it's leading you back to yourself.
yeah.
So we have all of these different ways of searching and journeying, but it's always leading you back to your heart.
Mm.
Yeah.
So I'd love to weave here. Who was Mary Magdalene?
Yeah. Now I love this question for many reasons. So I'll start with who she is to me.
Uh-huh.
And she is my guide and my guru. And
Mm.
she is so I see her definitely as a historical person and also a mythical figure. But the way that I really invite her into my life now is as an archetype. Like there's the spiritual side in which I talk to her like she's a spiritual being, but the way that I kind of use her in my work is as an archetype. And I really believe that she shows up for every woman in the area of a woman's life where she most needs healing. So for me, that was around female embodiment and female shame and trying to transform the shame that I felt, like maybe sexually, but also, my works with the menstrual cycle is like reclaiming the divine power, the sacred feminine power that's inherent to the female body. And Mary Magdalene has been my guide through that process. And I really felt at one point, she was like, if you want to you've been asking me, what does it mean to be a woman outside of patriarchal enculturation? And I'm going to take you on that journey, but it's deep inside. It's like you have to go inside of yourself to answer that question. So that's who she is to me, is my guide into discovering what it means to be a woman. And in that respect, I think, like I said, archetypally, she's really just this every woman. She's an archetype of an
Mhm.
every woman, and she is whoever you need her to be.
Mm. And why do we need her now? Why do we need her now in the world?
I think because that's a really great question. I think for a lot of reasons. One is like, as we've already been discussing, like because she represents this missing divine feminine, but
Mm.
okay, so people might be like, well, Mother Mary, yes, you have that nurturing, but it's only like what a woman, the whole totality of what a woman is and our power and our potential is not summed up in the one archetype, right? So Mary Magdalene also has this very embodied presence. She has the, even though the sexual piece, even though we know historically that there's no evidence that she was a prostitute, not putting any labels on prostitute either way, just historically what we know. In the mythic and archetypal imagination, she really represents feminine sexuality. And I think that she really has come forward in a way for us to reclaim the power of our sexuality, reclaim our agency. I have another friend who brought to my attention that Mary Magdalene teaches us how to grieve. Like, she's at the foot of the
Oh,
cross. She teaches us
mm,
deep how to
yeah.
go into
Yes.
which grief, this is talk about grief, like in traditional cultures forever, women were the ones that were wailing through the streets, doing the lamentations, like going into these trance states. We were the ones leading our cultures, our communities through the process of grief, because it's through grief that you can also find transcendence and God and know what it means to be an embodied soul. So she is one of the leaders of that. She's a teacher. She shows us that women can be great spiritual leaders and great teachers, and we can tap into the divine Sophia. Allegedly she knew Jesus's teachings better than any one of his disciples, and who, for all we know, she was teaching Jesus, her teachings as well. So we need her because she teaches us how to be leaders and how to embody our spiritual wisdom and how to own wisdom and knowledge, something that like has been kind of suppressed for women, or like any kind of women's creativity and wisdom has traditionally been minimized in Western culture for a long time, whether that's weaving or
Yes.
cooking, and I could go into like the specifics of that, but so it's like she just brings forth it just a fuller, richer tapestry of how to live our lives more fully and deeply as women.
Amen. I love that. Juicy. I want to pick up on a few things you said there. First of all, this journey and this archetypal of womanhood, we are so many facets and so many beings. So there's, like we said, the virginal Mary, but then there's so much that has been forgotten. And it is in a way also the sexual part, the sacred power. But then what about, and also we have like all that birth, and then actually the beloved figure as well. So it's not just as, okay, she's this perfect mother, virgin, but and that even means just holy unto thyself. So all these facets women go to, especially older women as well in crone age, we've really just
Yes.
disregarded the feminine. I mean, I always see the parallel with Earth, how we're treating Mother Nature and how the feminine has been suppressed. And the image that came to me early was actually like when we tar the roads and we're creating roads, which of course is a very practical solution, but we are suppressing the earth. So how have we suppressed ourselves in our initiation?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I love that. And you're reminding me of a conversation I just had with a friend this morning. I just relocated to Athens, and I live in a neighborhood called Pagrati, and I've been told that Pagrati was built over two sacred rivers. And I was just like, this is madness. Like, how, like, this is, such sacred land, especially for those of us, trying to reconnect. I mean, the whole earth is sacred. Okay. Sorry,
Yes.
Mother Nature. The whole earth is sacred. But to have that tradition so strongly and then like, build on top, like completely disregard like these sacred elements and then build these structures, like oppressive structures on top of it, just seems very disrespectful and also not ecologically friendly at all. But it's a way, we were talking this morning too about how it's a way to suppress ancient knowledge and try to make us forget our own history and our own kind
Wow.
of connection to the sacred.
Yeah. I love how this part weaves into, like, I always bring in also the Camino to Santiago. I like what I do with goddess tours, that where they say that Santiago de Compostela, where one of the apostles was supposedly buried or parts of him buried, that it's actually a pagan grave site. So they build that on top of a Celtic grave site. And there's an Isis temple there. I mean, she is everywhere. And it's the suppression of the ancient knowledge. So I think we can't even take it personal as women. It's just how things have I think panned out. But we are here now. We're here now remembering.
We are remembering, yeah. And yeah, there's so much, there is so much that's happened and that we could go into. But yeah, I think it's good. I think it's good what you said about not taking it personally, because it's not just a personal issue. It's a
Mm,
global issue. And honestly, if we're honest with ourselves, men suffer too
yes,
when women are suppressed, you know.
absolutely.
So we all suffer. The animals suffer, everybody suffers. So
Mm. I'd love to touch on this grief part. I was very moved by that. And I think we all move to or through grief at some point over in our lives. And we never think about celebrating grief or how do we work with grief. And again, that's funny that it comes in with the suppression topic. So we suppress that emotional process of grieving and going through it. And the lamentations, what you said, is so beautiful. The visuals, like it made me want to get up and wail.
this is a part of our lineage as women, you know, because in so many of our ancient cultures, that's
Yeah,
what our ancestors were doing. I can't say it's for everyone, but
yeah,
the more I read into history, that is the case.
yeah.
So, and my big question, I haven't really found the answer yet, is like, why was it the women? What is it that we recognized about women that made us the leaders of grief and lamentation? And
Mhm.
you know, because when I was in Varanasi, India, a couple of months ago, and I went to the burning ghat where they, you know, ritually burn corpses,
Wow.
and it's very noticeable that there are no women there except for the tourist women. Um, and I asked somebody, and he was like, "Because women are very emotional, and women are very emotional, and we believe death is a very celebratory process, especially when you die in Varanasi. They believe that you reach enlightenment if you die in this holy city. And so we want to celebrate death. And women are too emotional and cry. And it was just this weird way of trying to justify leaving women out of this very
Mm.
sacred process. I'm sure there's a lot more reasons that they would give me, and probably other religious reasons, but I was just like, that's kind of weird. I don't jive with that belief so much.
Not so much. And then it also almost makes it feel like grief is a rite of passage for women. So we are denying ourselves the process and the ability to go deeper into our feeling body. So this is why some women feel numb. This is why, or even my personal story and my experience, like, of course, we can feel numbed and we don't know what it is until we actually unlock that emotion. And when we go through grief, for example, very difficult.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, requires a lot of bravery. Requires a lot of bravery and surrender, sacrifice. And I don't mean sacrifice in kind of like a paternalistic way. I mean in the real ancient way. Like the root meaning of sacrifice is to make sacred.
Mm.
So it's like when you're sacrificing something, you're giving it over to the sacred.
Yeah. Wow. And now
Mhm.
you're living in Athens, sacred waters. Well, that's very feminine. Can you tell us a little bit more about yeah, your journey to Greece and what you're doing now in Athens? I mean, you're at the hot spot. You're like
I know. I
feminine
know.
waters, the wells.
I know. It's such an interesting journey here for me, because the truth about ancient Greece is that it was very patriarchal, and like so it's weird being here, and even the culture itself. I mean, it still has some of those traditional elements. Um, so it's weird kind of being in a culture that has that kind of strong patriarch energy, but also like, being so celebratory of the feminine myself. And, But there are these like outposts where the divine feminine is so strong. And one of the reasons I have felt called here, and I've met some other women that are also feeling called to come here either for chunks of time or to move, is that I really feel like part of my life's work is to help regenerate the feminine energy in lands like this where it's been suppressed. Because the sacred feminine is strong here, but over time, a lot of these patriarchal elements came and suppressed her or supplanted her mysteries with masculine oriented mysteries or mythologies, right? So even like the Oracle of Delphi is one example. So that where I've been 4 times, and I freaking love the Oracle of Delphi. I feel, yeah, I can see you do too. It's like I feel very connected to that priestess tradition. But you know, what we have is it was a oracle to Apollo, but what we believe before it was an oracle to Apollo, right? So let me actually just give an overview of what it is, just in case some people don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's Apollo's oracle, and what happens is there's these priestesses of the Pythia priestesses, and they would sit on this tripod over this crevice in the ground, and some people think that there were like fumes that got them, we would call them high, but we'll put them into a transcendental state. And then they go, blah, 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 whatever they were receiving from Apollo. And then the priests to Apollo would translate what these women were saying to the people that would come to the oracle, right? And so the people that would come would be like kings and military leaders and probably queens and maybe some commoners, but you know, I don't know about the commoners, like how accessible it would have been to them. And so, you know, so it was strong in that it like the women were, it was only women that were priestesses. And interesting enough, they had to be celibate while they were priestessing. So there was no sexual energy because sexual energy is really strong. And so it's not about it being sinful. So I just want to make that clear. It's about not mixing sexual energy with divine energy because those two things can be conflictual. And sexual energy, I think, is more related to the earthly realms as well. So, so when you're not, you know, connected to that like strong sexual pull, you're more accessible to the flow this
Yeah.
way, at least through that tradition. And actually many ancient priestess traditions were like that and priestly traditions. But again, I just want to make sure people know it doesn't have anything to do with Christian sin. It wasn't that, it was for other religious reasons,
Right.
to be very clear conduits of spiritual information. So anyway, so they think that before it became Apollo's oracle, that it was Gaia's oracle and that it was a dream center. It was a dream healing center dedicated to Gaia and her priestesses. And then eventually we have hints in the Homeric hymn to Apollo that Apollo's priests came and they overthrew that oracle and they took it over for themselves. But even the word Delphi, and I wish I had double checked this before I came on, but Delphi, I think it means womb, or it's related to a word that means womb.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there are these ancient kind of feminine treasures kind of left in the language and the traditions, even though it was taken over by Apollo's priests. So back to why I came, like I did a performance piece there where I was like, I am reclaiming this tradition for Gaia. Like that is like I'm standing here, infusing her, you know, the divine feminine energy, and this is her tradition. So that's why I'm in Greece for now. We'll see how long it lasts. Be a part of the healing. I just kind of go where the goddess leads me. And
I
then of
love
course I'm
that.
writing. Huh?
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that the being part of the healing, what you just said, being part of the healing, the remembrance coming through in ways showing women, like being the lighthouse. Mary Magdalene was the lighthouse. Magdala. So it's so
Yes,
beautiful.
exactly.
You know,
Yes. Yes.
years ago, I got a message in a dream, and this is how I get. Of course, they were talking about dream worlds and dreamscapes and dream temples. It said, go to Greece. And for the next few days, everything I saw was Greece, Greece, Greece. And I was at a time of my life, this was in my early 20s, where I'm like, okay, what's coming up? So, and I chose Spain. It was like Italy, Spain, Greece, and I chose Spain instead. And here I am, which has been a wonderful decision. But I have yet to journey to Greece. Yeah.
Oh, well, I hope you come and meet me here sometime. We'll go on some divine
Yeah.
feminine adventures.
Goodness, wouldn't that be divine? Oh,
Mhm.
please tell us. Yes, you're about to say you're writing on it.
Oh, yes. So which I can do anywhere, but it feel really like activated when I'm in ancient land. So I'm writing this book on Anana, on the descent of
Oh,
Anana myth,
mm.
and really using it as a sacred narrative. I'm retelling it as a sacred menstrual narrative, um, to
Wow.
help women like tap back into their sacred feminine power that's inside of our wombs. Um, so, it's just like I was telling a story recently, like the first time I came across the even idea that menstruation could be sacred was when I went to this museum and I saw some photos of the Apache sunrise ceremony. And that's a girls, so the Apache are from the Southwest of the United States, and they have these girls' puberty rites, initiation rites. And it's so beautiful and powerful. And they take these girls to this like 4-day ritual, and there's dancing and drumming and food. And she goes through these, like, there's vision questing, there's fasting, and she's believed to become transforming over those 4 days to become archetypically, she steps into the archetype of their first woman, changing woman, and she takes on the powers of changing woman. And changing woman might be like Pandora or Eve, but she doesn't have the misogyny heaped on her like Eve and Pandora do. So she's understood to be the creative, embody those creative powers of the universe. And those girls do too. They become women through this ritual. And they understand their purpose in the community and their spiritual lineage and what it means to be an Apache woman. And I was like, this is so drastically different than my own, experience of becoming,
Yeah,
getting my period. And so that was like the point where I was like, oh my God, like we need a sacred menstrual narrative. Like women need this, and we need a ritual,
yeah.
and it's not just little girls, like adult women need it, because those of us who didn't get it, we need that to be ritualized and honored in that way too.
I love that you say that, and I can't wait to read it. Yeah,
Mm.
because as you know, like I'm involved with the Red Tent and what the Red
Yes.
Tent was, and bringing that as a form of consciousness and a piece that we had in history to the modern world, which sometimes seems so strange. And how can I talk about it with people? How can I get women excited about the menstrual cycle? And I've actually experienced that men are very excited about it. Like, oh, I need to learn about it, and they want
Yes.
be participate, and can men join, and all this there is demand, I think. So it's now just translating it out through our wombs and sharing this memory, I would say, with people.
Yeah, I'm glad that you say that, because I've been experiencing that too with men who are curious or sharing their stories of, like, one guy told me that he's been helping his girlfriend track her menstrual cycle, and it's helping him get like understand his own cycles, or like how to interact in their relationship at different times. It's so cool.
So special.
Mhm.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I really have to think about how to translate it in a modern way. Here in Barcelona, everyone's very tech savvy, technology, and the world is changing, and it's opening this question, like, how are we going to translate this to make this um, open and interesting for people who are not in this, I would say, mystical initiation process as we might find ourselves in. So
Right.
really, how do we modernize the memory is what's coming through. It's like the MM.
Oh, there you go, Mary Magdalene. I love that. I
Yeah,
maybe it is connected to Mary Magdalene. That's interesting.
yeah.
Modernize it. Yeah. What did you say? Modernize the memory?
Modernize the memory. Yeah. And I'm
Cool.
seeing mermaids. That's something else that's been coming through for me pretty strong. Mer people. And as we know, like Mary Magdalene has a connection with the
Mhm.
waters, but also the water priestesses, the mer people, which, as we know, if we have mystical experiences and we leave briefly or however long our 3D experience, it's absolutely real. What is real?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Oh, I love that. Okay, I really appreciate people that are drawn to mermaids. It's kind of like not my elemental family, but I
Yeah,
really appreciate mer people and the energy of mermaids.
I think we need to come to Greece. We should definitely do something like that.
Yes, it'd be so
Meet
much fun.
people.
There's so many cool sites here. And the interesting, I bet this might be the case in Spain too, but the interesting thing is there's so many sacred sites here that, like, I was told the government doesn't even have the capacity to manage all of them. It's just like you throw a stone and they've like recovered an ancient site. There's just like, weeds growing over it and anybody can come to the step
Mhm.
on the temple. So there's a lot to be discovered.